Well, good Monday morning. This is a nice, cool Monday morning today. I actually had to dig a sweater out of my closet for the first time in many weeks. We did have a little bit of dew overnight, and this field is a little bit on the tough side. So this field, we actually have a trial in. We have some Motus on the far side, so we're going to have to be careful with how we harvest it. So I'll have to talk to Syngenta and get them involved in that when we find out what day of this week we're going to take this. Well, it's harvest day for my micronutrient trial, so I'm going to head in there with my my buckets and my homemade little grain flail here, and we will see how things turn out. I made a little redneck sieve so I can hopefully separate the grain from the chaff a little easier, so we'll see how well that works. Well, there's my samples all finished up. So I got control, treatment 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So now I need to go and weigh them and check the moistures and then adjust the yield based upon the moisture. And then we'll see where all these products stand. And I have a second trial to do yet, maybe this week yet later on. So then we'll have some comparison. I'm flying my field here, my trial field with drone deploy, just to do one last final analysis of it. Kind of post-harvest. By the time the imagery is developed, it'll be already combined, but for now the drone is just kind of doing its thing. So I just need to swap the battery, and then it's going to go out and do the other side of the field. Even this drone doesn't have enough battery power to do both sides of the field in one go. Back in the truck and hit resume. Flight
1067 Rock is left bridges
and go. The way she goes, up to 400 feet and beyond. So here's the trial field back on July 21st, which was the previous drone flight, and you can see clear as a whistle here where the Motus was applied. We had increased stem thickness and bigger rooting mass, but not necessarily a big height difference at the time, and it really shows up from the aerial view. It didn't show up too terribly well from the ground. When you throw on plant health imagery, you can't see much of a difference there either. When I go over to the new flight, August 31st, you can see we do have a little bit of lodging on the unsprayed side here, fairly minor overall, and very little on the Motus applied piece, just a little bit right here, kind of where the treatment line was. And if we zoom in here, we can actually see that's where my little trial plot area was, and you can see here we got a couple little spots of lodging, but overall very minor. I'm up by Mosley taking a look at some corn, and we have some unusual cobs up here. They're actually very well formed. They're nice and long. They've got standard girth, but you see the ends are pinched. And you can see some of these ones here are the same way, and that is likely caused by environmental issues, but genetics would play a big part in that as well. Well, I'm here by Lethbridge now taking a look at some corn, and we definitely have some aphids coming in here. You can see this particular ear is really bad. It is just absolutely coated in aphids. Aphids generally, they cause some visual damage, but they generally just feed on the husk here. They don't cause really economic damage unless they're extremely bad or the corn is earlier in the season. They can feed sometimes on these end kernels and kind of drain them a little bit, but it's generally not really worth spraying. Aphids, what their breeding cycle and the way they move around, if you spray them, you're gonna have to spray them again in about a week. They'll just continue to move in, continue to multiply. But these ears in this field are looking really nice. This is a nice big girthy ear, and we're kind of starting to come out of the milk stage in these. We're getting some good solids building up in here. So you can see we've got some good starch development in here now. So a couple more weeks, and before you know it, we'll be chopping this. And here's another cornfield by Lethbridge. This is a different variety. This is the DeKalb 30-06. You can see it has the basically the same aphid issue in here, and the ears are basically a different shape than the thunder corn. These are longer and slimmer, but should basically add up to the same thing. Staging on this is like a little bit farther behind. It's a little bit longer, but it is still developing starches in here quite nicely. Well, here's the canola field we did BSF's heat plus glyphosate in, and there's a reason why we did that instead of Regulone. Regulone is really good at turning the canola, but doesn't do all that great on weeds. So if you have a field where the staging is really far out, or you have thin areas that have big patches of weeds like this, and you want to get those weeds to dry down, then you use heat and glyphosate. It takes quite a lot longer, but it will dry these weeds down eventually. You can see these sow thistles here are completely crispy basically, but these big lamb's quarters, we burn the leaves off, they're turning color, but it's going to take them a little while yet to dry down. They'll need probably another week or so, but the canola itself has turned very well. Well, here's an unusual barley crop for you. This is Copeland malting barley, and this was seed that I provided to the brewery here in Lethbridge. This is a Theoretically Brewing Company, so they've been watering this quite good. So these tillers are still quite green, but these heads are very dry now. So I'm going to grab my harvesting bucket and flail, and I'll get a sample out of this, and then they can play with it as they will. Well, we got a heck of a wind here today, and there's a lot of dust in the air. Definitely going to be a day where you get your grit in your diet, but as you can see, this canola swath is already threatening to blow. The wind has got underneath of it here and has lifted up the base of those stems, so not much we can do about it here and right now. Hopefully the wind decreases throughout the day and we don't have a huge mess. Well, the alder-on wheat is pretty much finally at swath timing. I mean, areas are maturing pretty nicely in here now, but we do still, oh, never mind. There is still some green spots here. We're gonna have to wait a little bit longer, but overall, getting pretty close. Here's some of the late seeded oats that are just starting to head out, and everything here is looking pretty good. Heavy aphids in here as well, but we do have quite a lot of ladybugs in here. This one is just kind of pupating right now between the larval and the beetle stage, but there's quite a few of those in here because there's a heavy amount of aphids, and it's great to have some biological control. Checking out some canola stubble by Colehurst, looking at blackleg infection levels. You can see in this field here we have quite a high visible infection rate on this canola stubble here, and even these greener plants, when you pull them up and you cut them open, you can see we have some pretty classic blackleg symptoms. Well, I'm down by Lethbridge now on the same variety of corn that had the ears up north by Mausley there that were kind of flattened on the end, and I'm actually seeing the same thing here. So you can see this ear is quite noticeably flattened on the tip and is a little underdeveloped on the tip as well, but otherwise it's a very nice long ear. On this next ear that was right beside it looks perfectly normal. So it's something to do with the genetics and the environment. I'm definitely not seeing it as much here, but there is still the odd one here and there. Here's a patch in a wheat field, really shows you the difference that crop canopy can make. So this was a patch on a hillside. The wheat didn't take off too terribly well, kind of a sandy area. And you can see the kochia really took over in this spot here. So now this field has been combined for about 5-6 days. Kochia and the Russian thistle is already starting to come back. This is actually mostly a Russian thistle, so this would be a really good field for an application of Black Hawk or DB878. Well, here's a rough looking lentil field. This is somebody that should have used Fierce or Volterra or Focus or something along those lines for some residual kochia control in the spring. Well, I'm down here by McGrath taking a look at a lentil field, and as you can see there's still a little bit of green in here. This did get desiccated just about 2 days ago, and it's coming along. There's some pretty nice lentils in there, and it's definitely a heavy crop, but in some spots it's lodged pretty good, laying down flat to the ground after that little bit of wind and rain we had yesterday. So it might be slow going to pick this up when they get in here. Still waiting patiently for the AC Congress Durum down here to mature. I mean, it's at physiological maturity. We're just waiting for it to dry down. It's being a bit slow, but it'll be there eventually, but it sure looks nice for right now anyways. Well, really nice looking raspberry crop out here. This is a much later producing variety. I can't remember what it was called off the top of my head, but it's one of the newer type that you basically mow them down every year and they regrow right from the base. You don't have to prune them. But really nice sized berries. Not a whole pile that are ripe fully yet, but they sure taste good. Well, the watermelons have really been packing on weight in the last week. These guys are getting huge now, so these are definitely getting to be full size. I'm actually quite impressed with these. The regular melons that are over here are much smaller, but they're looking really good too. Some nice little healthy melons. Well, there's lots of canola coming off right now. Yield's pretty good from what I'm hearing on dry land. We're, 45 to 50 bushels, a little bit higher on irrigation, so things are looking good so far, and it's still early, so we'll see what some of the longer season varieties come up with, but for now, looking good. Haven't got much drone video yet this week, so there might not be a drone video today, but probably early next week. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.